Hey guys, today I'm here to share with you all of the books that I read in September, so let's get started. The first book that I finished in September was Saga, the very first volume. This is a comic book series that I have been really wanting to get into, and I'm so glad I did because I love this so much. I'm going to pick up all of the issues because it's fantastic. The artwork in this is beautiful. And the story is great. It's a really great sci-fi. It involves like two separate worlds and kind of a forbidden romance thing going on, which is usually not my thing, but I love this and I love the characters so far, so I'm really excited to read more of it. The second book that I finished this month is The Lost Kingdom of Damar. This is a prequel to a book that I loved as a kid, which is The Two Princesses of Damar. This is one of my absolute favorite books. I still read it regularly as an adult, probably every couple of years. So when I heard that the prequel was coming out, I was very excited. I knew it wouldn't have the same characters as this one because it's set before this book, and it's also kind of in a different area of the world. So, however, there is a surprise cameo by someone that is in the other book, so that was fun. Despite my excitement for this book, I was really disappointed by it. The writing style was, I guess, the same, but the way the story unfolds is very, very different from the first one. I found it to be really lackluster. It was kind of, I don't know, I didn't connect with any of the characters very much. The main character kind of annoyed me, and the world almost like wasn't as rich as the other one, which is really weird because the world's already established from the original book, so you'd think a prequel would just build on that. And it does in a way, but not in the way I wanted it to, and I was really underwhelmed by this, and so I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. The next book I read I don't have a copy of because I did do an audiobook, and that is The Hobbit. I actually got the audiobook version of this that is like the radio production. So it had sounds and multiple voices voicing characters and just a really big cast of people doing the narration and just a lot of like sound effects and everything, which was interesting. However, I think that I would have preferred this format of audiobook if I had already read the book originally, which I have not. This is my first time reading The Hobbit, even though I'm familiar with the movies. And I honestly lost some of the description parts of the book, and I didn't get as much of the, like, you know, inside people's heads conversations that you tend to get with, you know, written, just an audiobook being read as is instead of being formulated for like a radio. That being said, I did really enjoy this story. I really enjoyed the audiobook, and I'm really glad I read it. I tried to read it when I was a kid, probably like middle school age, and I got really bored really quick, so I quit. But I really liked it as an adult, and I'm glad I read it. The next book I read is one of my blind date with a book kind of things that I'm doing, which I will have a video on that very soon, but this is Pretentiousness by Dan Fox. I'm not going to go into too much detail on that because I am going to have a lot more information on it in my blind date with the book video that will be coming out in the next week or so. But this is a series of essays. It says it's an essay, but it's really like short little chapter pieces of an essay and different concepts explained in different ways, and I actually really enjoyed this a lot. It's a look at to why we consider things pretentious and why pretentiousness may be actually a good thing in the world, and the way it's equated to different like life circumstances. You know, it's talked about in the form of art, in friendships, in, you know, movies. There's a lot of different ways that it manifests, and how in those different ways pretentiousness can actually be a good thing used to our advantage. What I didn't like about this book is that it gets a little rambly towards the end. I would say the last third of this book I really skimmed through because it was the same concepts just repeated with different viewpoints and in different kind of social settings, I guess. So it's a really good concept, but I think it could have been done in about half the length, and maybe just like one essay instead of this series of essays that just repeats the same concept over and over. However, I really enjoyed it, even though it got a little rambly, but because of that, I did only give it 4 stars instead of 5, which when I first started reading this, I definitely thought I was going to give it 5 stars, but it's a 4 for me. The last book that I read this month is also an audiobook, so I'll have that somewhere around here, but it is A Little Princess. And this is a classic children's book that I never had heard of until somebody on my Goodreads list had like rated it 5 stars, so I went ahead and added it to my list. Why not? And there is I believe a 1995 movie that is based off this book that everybody seems to love. I was never introduced to it. I mentioned it to my husband as I was reading this. He's like, oh yeah, I love that movie. And I was like, what? How have I never heard of this? So I went into this completely blind, not having any concept of it before going into it, and I hated it so much. Don't come at me in the comments for it if you love this. Totally fine, you're allowed to love it, I just don't. This book is definitely very dated. I feel like some classics, you read them in the present time and it ages pretty well, like while it still has kind of like an old speak to it and just different concepts and the way the world is very different, but it still is readable and enjoyable in modern times. This is one of those books that I don't think ages well at all. One of the things that bugged me the most about this is the way it described people talking like excitedly or with surprise. Every single time somebody was described as like saying something like that, they ejaculated it. And this is said like 20 times through this book, and I just could not. I'm like sitting there at work typing on my computer, and every time that happened I was just like, ugh. I don't know, it just weirded me out, and the fact that it's used so frequently. Not only that, but the way that different people in this book who are not white are described is extremely racist and extremely rude and judgmental, and I don't like it at all, and it really bothered me. Like the fact that some of the characters were only referenced as being Oriental or as Asians having yellow face, or one of the girls having a dark face. Like that was just like the #1 way to describe these people. And I understand describing someone's race when you're first introduced to them just so you have a concept for what they look like, what their background is. I think that's totally fine, but when your only description factor of them throughout the book is that Indian guy, bothers me. Don't like it. And overall, plot-wise, I just found this to be really boring. Maybe I would have enjoyed this a lot more as a kid, but the main character is very much a Mary Sue. She's someone who's perfect and wonderful and never does anything wrong and just so sweet. And I just got really boring. Like, she had no grit to her. She had no personality beyond being prim and proper and amazing. And so, I don't know, I just got really bored really quickly. And this is a fairly short book. I think it's like less than 250 pages. And I really just didn't like it. So that wraps up my September reads. Let me know what you read, if you've read any of the books that I did, and did you like them, did you not? I would love to talk to you about it. Leave me a comment down below, and if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. That lets me know that you like these wrap-up videos and you want to see more of them. And if you want to see more videos from me, I do have book and beauty related content, so you can subscribe to see more of that, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.